I have people that are manually doing this, and that increases my cost as well. If you start to talk, what is increasing your cost? Let me help you there. And by the way, I need you to kind of help me out over here because I need these things to have a better user experience. If you talk together, you can help him remain cost neutral, or even better for that matter, but you need to work together. And that's what I mean by seeing the whole business, not just your function and optimizing for that alone. I'm going to skip this for the interest of time. So I talked about that if a manager is only sitting there and managing the team and that's about it, that's really not enough for a leader in your organization. So this is a picture of a taskmaster. A task comes, I assign it to you, you do it. Another task comes, I give it to you, and you do it. You are just a router. That's not management, that's not leadership, right? You need to have your own initiatives. You need to have your own function that you do on your own, not just a representation of your team, that's it, right? So you need to encourage yourself to be that, first of all, because if all you do is routing throughout the day and you feel good about yourself, you shouldn't, because you're not really adding value. You are just a router. You need to have your own things that you deeply care about and you drive that forward. I'm going to move on. Just a quick comment. This is coming from this book. It just reminded me. At any point when you just had an idea, you had an initiative that you want to move forward, right? Or you had a moonshot. What you need to keep in mind, and that is the book that Engage Leadership tells me, through research they have found that at any point, you have only 26% of your workforce, no matter how good of a manager or leader you are truly engaged for whatever reason. Okay, that means 1 in 4 is truly engaged in your organization. Okay, so what does it mean? What it means is that in order for you to get the energy out there, you need to first sell it to these people, and you know who they are. You sell it to these people, and once they start to show interest in this and they show the energy, now it's more than you. It's 1 in 4 that are echoing your sentiments, and all of a sudden it will catch on. So just knowing that helps you kind of.
Is that statement at 26%? 1 in 4. What's that based on?
Well, I don't know how they did the research. I mean, exactly how they calculated it, but the conclusion is that, not everybody is as engaged as they might look, basically, right? You disagree with that?
I completely disagree, but yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I will connect you.
I also could be very lucky in the teams that I work with, so.
That part I will agree. I have had teams where probably the number is lower, and I have had teams that the number is, again, that's the law of averages, basically, but that's kind of at a rough level, basically. This is particularly true for a leader. If you want to lead, you need to bring something else to the table rather than just your experience. So I find it very amazing the sense of entitlement sometimes people have just because of their pedigree. I went to MIT, so I don't need to learn from anybody. I am better than you, right? What I have found, and I really, really, really do believe this, I learn from my 4.5-year-old kid every day. I can learn from anybody. Okay? So the point is that if you have that mindset that I'm a perpetual student and I'm no better than anybody and everybody can teach me, your knowledge will continue to grow. One of the things I really liked is it Sheryl Sandberg, the CFO of Facebook, I believe. She wrote this book called Lean In. And one of the things I was asked of her was that, what do you look for in an employee? And she said, what was the one thing that you look for in an employee? And she said, the ability to receive feedback and act upon it. And it's kind of like, okay, why is that important, right? Her point of view is that you can hire a very talented person, but if he or she is not open to feedback, he or she will remain at that point forever. Whereas I could hire somebody that's less than that, but open to feedback, constructive criticism, and he or she will continuously improve. That's why that's kind of important. So that's my point, that being a student and having that mindset that I don't know it all, I'm here to learn, and I can learn from anybody. Just because somebody went to a worse school, supposedly, doesn't mean he doesn't have something to teach me. Somebody who's working for me doesn't mean he has nothing to teach me. So the ways to learn is obviously through mentors, and I think you should pick out mentors carefully. You can learn from your friends, but one thing that I mean, you've seen this, and you can learn from your failures, but the one I want to focus on is, I don't know how many of you, and I know I don't want to offend anybody, but I feel like this is an easy thing. And maybe it's like somebody says running is fun, and it's not fun for me at all. So I can understand that. But I feel like books are ways to get an edge over everybody else. Because so few people read books, right? And I think books give you, open your mind, connect the dots, okay? Learn from others' experience. So I would encourage you to be a perpetual student and continue to learn from the books. Pick one book a quarter. Read 10 minutes a day. One of the things that one of my mentors told me was, get in the habit of, before sleeping, make a habit of reading 10 minutes a day. And if you do the calculation, that means you will finish one book a quarter. 4 books a year. Just by changing one little habit. Right? So I would encourage you to do that. I'm not going for a break because I think this is not the same setup. So anti-patterns. So there's a reason I'm calling it out like this, just to grab your attention. Like, don't work for your boss. It's like, what are you talking about? The word that's missing over here is, don't work only for your boss. And I'm going to tell you a story. I was at this startup that I talked about, and I had this wonderful boss who would encourage me and back me up, give me all these opportunities, and every day I would go to work for him. And he used to do something really silly, but it was really, I would be sitting in a conference room. If he's walking by, he would literally stop and salute me and then go, right? It's one of those idiosyncrasies, but that made me feel good though. And every time I would accomplish something, he would send me an email saying, thank you very much. And I would live for that email. Like, that would motivate me so much. I was tying all of my motivation to him, right? And then one day, he decides he's going to move on. And then I realized that I had nothing to work for anymore. That was it. That was my motivation, right? So I put all my eggs in one basket in some ways, and it took me probably 3 months to figure out, no, that's not the way to work. You have many bosses, you have many stakeholders, not the least of which is your team. I learned through an agonizing process that once you start working for your team, it's kind of reverse. You would think that teams work for you. No. If you reverse that mindset saying, I work for the team, and you show up to work, make lives better for your team, it just changes your mindset. It doesn't matter who you work for anymore. I'm not saying you disrespect your boss or anything of that sort. All I'm saying is that's not the only stakeholder you have. When you do that, you're kind of setting yourself for some failure there. Your peers are your boss, your customers are your boss, your team are your boss. So basically have and work for all of those so that one thing doesn't bring you down. This is also true. Sometimes your boss would say one thing, one word wrong, and your day is ruined. Or a customer yells at you and your day is ruined. But once you realize that, no, I work for many, many, many stakeholders, it's just one of them is unhappy today. Okay?
I have a comment on that. Personally, like, one of the things I've noticed with that last statement of working for your team, in the managers and my bosses that I've had in the past and I have now, the ones that I love the most are where I don't work for them, they advise me, and then I work for the team, right? So it's like I'm given the autonomy to do what's needed for the company and for the team. But hey, this is your goal.
That's right.
And then they let me go and let.
And I'm here if you need me, but I don't have to be like micromanaging you. Yeah. That's kind of the leadership fog that I talked about. Repeat. Okay. Do you want to repeat yourself?
Oh, yeah. I said that one of the things that I've noticed with the managers that I have now and in the past is that when you work for your team, you no longer really work for your boss, but you take advisement from your boss. So the bosses that I hold dear and I love the most, that I've loved the most in my past, are the ones that give me advisement and an instruction or a guidance, not necessarily an instruction. They don't tell me what to do because they hired me for a reason. They trust who I am and what I do, and they say, hey, this is what I would like you to achieve, now go do it. And it's up to me to work with my team to
Achieve that.
To do what has been asked or what has been suggested lightly.
Right, that's true. And I totally agree with that, and in the sense that sometimes if you do that, you own the outcome because he's told you what the result you want. But he could have taken a different approach, which is he knows the outcome he wants, and then he gives you tasks. Then your job is done at the time the task is done, whereas the outcome is not achieved, right? And another thing that I've heard recently from a colleague / friend, I found it interesting, is like the difference between, and I don't really agree with the terminology, but I'll explain terminology a little bit. Difference between mentoring versus coaching. And mentoring in his mind is more like kind of giving you an answer to the question that you asked. And coaching in his mind is more like, you asked a question, I'm going to ask more questions to find your own answer, so you own that answer. So my job is to kind of be a sounding board and kind of nudge you towards that answer, right? So, fair enough. How many of you have ever had like judo? Wow, I usually never get a hand up. It's good. So I haven't done judo, but I have picked up something that somebody has done judo and told me this. Judo is not, huh? That's taekwondo. Is this what it is? Yeah. This is the closest image I could find. So, the point I'm trying to make is, and those of you who have done judo, the good thing when people don't raise their hands is like, I can say anything, I'll get away with it. But now you'll keep me honest now. So, but my point is that my understanding is in judo, it's never about the strength of you or your opponent, right? In the sense that judo is not about you have more strength so you will win. It's about, in a way, using your strength against you to win, right? So, can somebody validate that for me?
More like jiu-jitsu, I think. It's applicable to any sport where there's technique and strength. Even in weightlifting, there's a lot of technique, a lot of strength.
Yeah, but I think I'll get to that guy who told me this later. But anyway, the point is, sometimes you will be thrown a curveball. Now you can get, impacted by that, or you can use that to go somewhere. An example could be that somebody is coming to you saying, you should do this. Like, for example, you should shut down that office. And then you say, okay, that's something that I probably have to do now because that's a mandate or whatnot. But can I use that to move some of my other agenda items? Like, you know what, I always wanted to build a team in Santa Clara, but I never had the budget. So maybe I'm going to use that imperative, which your boss absolutely needs you to do. I need to consolidate my locations. And I want to. Well, if you want to do that, that's fine, but I need to do this in order to mitigate the risk. So instead of saying, no, I can't do that, even though you really don't want to do that, you can use that to move some of your other agenda items. So sometimes it's not worth fighting something that's inevitable, because you can fight, but eventually you have to give in anyway. Another thing is, and this is somewhat related, is I've seen this play out many times where a customer would have an issue and it will escalate if you don't do the right thing. You still somehow, out of your ego or whatever, you push back saying that is not the right thing, I'm not going to do this and whatnot. And then eventually your boss gets involved or boss's boss gets involved and says, you know what, we got to do this. And then you go and do this anyway. So now you have done it, yet you are not the hero. So my point is, you need to make your best offer first time around without your boss or anybody getting involved. If you think this is how far I can go on this, go without being told. And then you must have good reason for why you cannot go beyond that, such that even if your boss comes and your CEO comes and God knocks on your door, you can say, well, that is not possible. We cannot do this for XYZ reasons. That's what I intend to do, because otherwise you end up doing the job and still not getting the credit for it. You are not the hero, and it's a lose-lose situation. We're almost there. A lot of times I've seen this, that leaders don't make enough decisions, and because they don't have all the data points. And I believe that that's a very wrong strategy to take. In an agile environment or not, making a decision, and even if it is a wrong decision, it gives you additional data point to make a better decision next time, okay? Or at least give you a better points of view so that you can actually start to make the right decision for the same problem, okay? So being indecisive is actually not a good leadership skill. Even if it is on a partial data, you need to make decisions. And over time, you'll get better with operating with partial data. But if you shy away